What's going on there, YouTube? Welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to continue our coverage over the X-Men. And as you all know right now, we are currently covering Fatal Attractions. Now, we have already covered the first two chapters of this six-part crossover between all the X-teens like X-Force, X-Factor, both X-Men teams, and of course Excalibur as well, including Wolverine as well. But today we're going to focus on Chapter 3 that takes place in Uncanny X-Men issue number 304. Now for me and most fans of the X-Men, this is the moment where we can officially say kicks off Fatal Attractions. Because the first two chapters of Fatal Attraction kind of like solo chapters for two of the X teams, X Factor and X Force. The rest of the teams were not really officially affected by those two chapters. X Factor had to deal with the idea of being lied to by Val Cooper. And when it came to X Force, well, Cable got messed up by Magneto. Now, you could technically say that the Magneto part in X Force does lead into the later chapters of Fatal Attractions, but we're now officially picking up with the war between Magneto and Charles Xavier. And you see what I mean as we go through today's video. But as we get into the third chapter of Fatal Attractions, we actually pick up with Fabian Cortez being attacked by his fellow acolytes. Now remember, when it came to Fabian Cortez, he was the person who kind of killed off Magneto in the earlier part of the X-Men in the 1990s. Now the reason why he did that, because he was trying to use Magneto as a martyr to kind of inspire people to join his side, but to also attack the human race. Now we also had learned that for Fabian Cortez, he also killed off Magneto because he was part of the Upstart organization. Now remember, the Upstart organization was a group of people who played this very sick game where they would go after other people around the world to receive points. People who were mostly mutants or at least had powers. Now if you killed off a character that was really powerful, well, you receive more points than usual. And so when it came to Fabian Cortez, when he had killed off Magneto, he hit two goals. One, getting more people on his side, but two, he had received a lot of points in the Upstart organization. Now, when it came to our last few X-Men videos, he found out that Magneto is not dead. And so for him, it's the beginning of his downfall. He lost all those points he had originally because he believed he killed off Magneto, but also because the acolytes found out that he lied, that technically it was him who killed off Magneto, but also Magneto is alive. Now, the way the acolytes are finding out is because of Exodus. Now, you see my last couple videos for Fatal Attractions. All we know right now for Exodus is that he's this powerful mutant, and over time in our coverage over the X-Men, we're going to learn about all the different powers he may have. But right now, he is Magneto's right-hand man. And he's all like, hey guys, listen, that man right there, he lied to you. Magneto is alive. And matter of fact, he's offering you guys a home away from hell, away from Earth, on his new base in space, Avalon. So why not come with me to live a better life away from that traitor? Now, I want to jump over to Charles Xavier. And the reason why, because for Charles Xavier and the rest of the X-Men, really all the X-teams, they're kind of dealing with the idea of the death of Illyana, the little sister to Colossus. Now, we all know that for Colossus, the 90s were really rough for the character. And the reason why, because he lost his brother to suicide, he lost his parents thanks to the Russian government, and now he lost his sister to, well, the legacy virus that was put out in the world thanks to strife. But for Charles Xavier, for the death of Illyana, he feels like a huge failure. Now, for Charles Xavier, it's really more the idea that there have been other mutants under his watch that had officially died, or while he was away, that had also officially died. And so he feels like right now he's failing the mutant race, but also he kind of feels like he's alone. Now, technically he is not, but for Charles Xavier, it's only him who could possibly lead the mutant race into a better future. Nobody else. The X-Men are just helping out, but he's the man who has to lead that mission into the dream he wants to achieve. Now, really, you have Ileandra up here, his space girl from also the leader of the Shi'ar Empire, and she realized that Charles Xavier is going through a lot, but she also realized that Charles feels alone. And so it's her just trying her best to comfort her man, say, you're not alone. I'm here for you. You have the X-Men. You are not alone. But for Charles, he still feels like he is alone because it's up to him to save the mutant race. Now, when it comes to Magneto, he's also kind of feeling the same way as Charles Xavier, but there's some things different about the two characters. And what I mean by that statement is that for Magneto, he truly believes that he's the only savior for the mutant race, but he's not trying to achieve the same goal as Charles Xavier, the whole idea that mutants and humans can live together. For Magneto, he already knows it's not really possible, but on top of that, for Magneto, he's being motivated because he has seen the death of many young mutants across the world, but also because of his daughter. Now remember, by this point in Marvel Comics, for Magneto, he only had 3 kids: Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and also Anya. Now, Anya was his first daughter, his first child. Now, you're probably like, hey, wait, what about Polaris? They had not discovered the whole idea that Magneto was the father to Polaris until a few more years after this story arc right here. But for right now, let's just focus on Anya. Now, Anya was the first child of Magneto and Magda. Now, when it came to Anya, she had died unfortunately in a fire. Now, when it came to that fire, Magneto was trying his best to go back in there and save his daughter after being able to save his wife. But unfortunately, he was attacked by a mob of people, a mob of human beings. And so, unfortunately, he had to watch his daughter die in that fire. Now, for you guys out there kind of wondering, like I was when it came to the Krakoa era of X-Men comics, and if they had the ability to bring her back to life, they did not. And the reason why, because we kind of find out that Anya was not a mutant at all. She was a regular human being. And that was a big thing when it came to the Krakoa era of X-Men comics. The whole idea of bringing back dead mutants. You had to be a mutant. Either way, getting back to Fatal Attractions, for Magneto, watching his daughter die, but also other people die by the hands of the different humans across the world, it's just so hard for him to deal with. And so it's him saying, like, it's up to me to lead the mutant race into a better future, leading into that war between him and Charles Xavier. Now, I kind of want to jump over to Kitty Pryde and Storm, and there's a good reason why, because over the years up to this point in the X-Men timeline, Kitty Pryde was kind of like the daughter for Storm, and Storm was kind of like the mother for Kitty Pryde. They had a very close bond for one another, and really, you could also say that Wolverine was kind of like the father to Kitty Pryde, as she was a daughter of many for Wolverine. But either way, for Kitty Pryde, she's kind of upset because she feels like if they were normal, none of this would happen to them. The idea of Cypher being killed off back in New Mutants, the idea of Thunderbird dying back in the early days of X-Men comics, the idea of Liana now dying this only a few weeks ago. It's the whole idea that they're trying to achieve this goal for the mutant race, for the human race as well, but the problem is they're not getting close to that goal. Instead, the bodies are just piling up. And so for Storm, it's more of, hey, you know what? Let's have a little chat, Kitty Pryde. Let me talk to you a tad bit why I feel like it's great to be a mutant no matter what. Because for Storm, it's really more saying, even though the dead bodies are piling up, even though they've been battling against so many different groups out there across the world, you always have to look at the brighter side of things. Because even though the war is long, we're still winning small battles here and there. And those small battles, they're also piling up, which means that our goal may sooner or later come to reach. And that will be a great thing when it finally comes. Now, I want to jump over to Colossus because for Colossus, like I said, this man has been dealing with a lot. The whole idea of losing his sister, but also his brother thanks to suicide, his parents thanks to the Russian government. Like for Colossus, this was probably the worst time for him being an X-Men in the 1990s. And so you have Kitty Pryde and Storm realize that for Colossus, he's burning all his paintings, just getting rid of every single thing he had painted over the years. Because to him, there's no point in his life anymore. Now, also because for Colossus, he's having a hard time kind of controlling his feelings. And the reason why, because there was a story on accident had skipped over where he had fought against a character known as the Executioner. And Colossus got a tad bit damaged. And so he has a dent in his head. And that dent in his head is somewhat kind of affecting him on how he actually acts when it comes to his feelings. Either way, for Kitty Pryde, she realized that the man she loved when she was younger is kind of just cold now. He does not want to bond with anybody because this man has now lost his entire family in a short period of time. Now, for me, the next couple of pages are kind of hinting at the idea that we're getting another X team, a new team that's kind of like the New Mutants, but not being called the New Mutants. And that would be Generation X. And the reason why I'm saying that, because you have Bishop having a hard time understanding the whole idea of a funeral, because apparently in his future, they didn't have funerals. And so you have Banshee trying his best to explain things to Bishop, but also you have Bishop mention the fact that for Banshee, there was a point where down the road, he would actually become the last hope for the next generation. And just like that, it's the book saying like, hey guys, listen, we already have like 4 or 5 teams, but what if we had another team out there, but being led by Banshee? And so it's kind of saying like, hey, coming soon, coming soon. Right now, just these teams right here who are going to attend the funeral. Now, when it comes to Illyana's funeral, you have all the different X teams. You have X-Men, you have Excalibur, X-Force, X-Factor. Like everyone is there to, celebrate the life of Illyana. But then it kind of leads into the idea of Charles Xavier wanting to have this conversation with Colossus, see how he's dealing with the fact that now he lost another family member. But this is going to be Colossus just going off on Charles Xavier. Because for Colossus, it was Charles Xavier who kind of promised him the idea of, if you help me try to achieve the goal of mutants and humans living together in harmony, that everything will be great for you and your family as well. And so it's Colossus saying, your words had yanked me away from my family. It was your words that put me on this path. It was your words that had me believe in your dream. But now I lost my brother. I lost my parents. I lost my sister. I have lost everything because of you, Charles Xavier. Now, while you have Colossus just going off on Charles Xavier, Magneto arrives. Now, for Magneto, for him being here, it's more of a statement. Like, yes, he may have crashed the funeral for Illyana, but it's really more of Magneto saying, no, I came here because I am tired of seeing our people die. I am tired of the young mutants who are younger than me and Charles Xavier, dying in front of my eyes left and right because of different things, like the different factions out there for the different organizations who want to kill off the mutant race, the different fractions out there of mutants who are hurting other mutants. I am tired of this virus that's going around killing off mutants left and right, one by one. It's time for me, Charles, to pick up where you have fell off at. It's time for me to lead our people into salvation. And so it's Magneto saying, I didn't come here to fight you guys. No, I came here to offer you guys a better life, a better chance to actually survive. And so you have Magneto use his powers to make sure that no one is able to move so that they are able to listen to his words. Now, for Quicksilver, he does kind of hate the acolytes because if you saw my coverage over the chapter for X Factor when it came to Fatal Attractions, well, there was a moment where you had the acolytes went to a hospital, really more a hospice care for people who were on the verge of death. And so with that, you have the acolytes kill off every single person in that facility. And so for Quicksilver, it's all like, how can you take the acolytes back to your side, Father, for what they have done? They have killed off innocent humans who were on the verge of death. Now, for Magneto, he does kind of believe that the people that had died were not completely innocent. But at the same time, he does agree for what the acolytes have done was completely wrong. And so you have Magneto actually kill off one of the members of the acolytes who were part of that crime. And that would be Senyaka. Now, when it comes to Senyaka, he'll die in this chapter right here, but he'll come back down the road in later parts of our coverage over the X-Men. Now, with all that being said, is Magneto showing Quicksilver like, no, I do not agree for what they have done. But you also have to realize it was not me who had told the acolytes to kill off those humans. It was Fabian Cortez when he was the one in charge. But then you have Magneto show the X-Men his new home, his new fortress, and that would be Avalon. Now, this is a huge moment. And the reason why, because you have Charles Xavier realize that Magneto was able to build this base by using Shi'ar technology, the technology that Charles left behind when he left the X-Men in charge of Magneto. There was a brief moment in time where Magneto was the actual leader of the X-Men. Matter of fact, he was the master, the headmaster of Charles Xavier School when Charles left to go spend time with Ileandra. And so with that happening, it gave Magneto the ability to get that Shi'ar technology, but also parts of the Gray Malkin that had belonged to Cable's old base, put it together to make a fortress. Now for Magneto, he's calling this heaven for the mutant race because Earth is hell, but heaven is this place away from all the bad things happening on Earth. And so Charles realized that it was his fault that Magneto was able to build this base with Shi'ar technology. Now, this leads into the moment where you technically have the X-Men being able to fight back against Magneto finally. And really, it's all because of Bishop. Let me explain. You see, Bishop has the ability to absorb energy. And so the entire time while you have Magneto using his power to keep the X-Men at bay, well, his powers is also being used against Bishop, a form of energy that Bishop was able to absorb. And once you have Bishop be fully charged, he is able to release that energy right back at Magneto, sending him flying across the home of Charles Xavier, giving the X-Men the ability to finally move again. Now, for Magneto, he truly does blame the human race for the whole idea of the legacy virus. Now, we already know the legacy virus came from Strife, but it's really more Magneto saying it was the humans that kind of pushed Strife into that direction. It was the humans that led a Strife become the man he was, the man who decided to go ahead and release the legacy virus across the world. Now, you do have Rogue trying her best to use her powers as a way to stop Magneto, but the problem is that Magneto is so strong that even though Rogue took a portion of his power, really half his powers, he's still so powerful that he was able to take her down. Now for Bishop, he was able to receive more energy from the different members of the X-Men. And so right now they're trying to use that energy as a way to beat down on Magneto. Now for Magneto, he's technically in a tight bind right now because he's trying to use his powers as a way to protect himself, but also use his powers as a way to hold up Avalon. Either way, after a few more pages, you then have Colossus attack Bishop from behind, because Colossus is actually going to join Magneto's side. Because for Colossus, he has now officially lost his trust in the dream of Charles Xavier. He lost his trust in the man who made him an X-Men, Charles Xavier. Is him wondering, what is the other side like? And so is Colossus leaving the X-Men and joining the side of Magneto. Now, the ending of this chapter is really more of Charles Xavier and Magneto kind of hashing it out with one another, because it's Charles Xavier kind of realized that the man he called a best friend many years ago is long gone. Now, for Magneto, he believes that man had never existed. The man that Charles met was a false version of Magneto. That right now we're seeing right here is the real version of Magneto. Either way, you do have Charles Xavier use his powers as a way to force the powers of Magneto to send Avalon in Magneto back into space. And you have Charles fall down in the sky and having Archangel catch him. Now, that is the end for this chapter of Fatal Attractions, but we still have 3 more chapters to cover. In those 3 other chapters, things are going to get a whole lot crazier. But with that being said, guys, this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.